Hey
Is that your
everyone.
cheeks?
Fuck's sake. Well, this is a great
My
intro. We're
cheeks,
going to keep
Daddy.
going with this. So I'm Retro, also known as Vague Strategist. We are here today to do an interview after PB4 and after action with Kermit, who is on the admin team. Kermit, say hi.
Hi.
We then have two blue team members, the 1-2 boys, Monk and Rendar. Monk?
Hi.
Rendar?
G'day. What's going on?
We
Nice
then
to
have-
see you sounding like uplifting for once in a voiceover.
And not depressing in my videos.
Yes.
Yeah, I know. It's a nice change. We then got Green Team, which is myself and Colonel Golami himself, Zach.
Ahoy hoy.
So yeah, we are all home and resting up from Parabellum 4. So I thought we didn't get rest before, we didn't get rest after. It's
the cycle of life.
yeah, that is true.
I'm
So
tired.
yeah. So we're on the Warcry Primetime Discord today, where most of us tend to hang out, play games, and be retarded and autistic like we usually are.
You're really selling it.
Yeah, I really am. Yeah. I mean,
Alright, everyone, join the Warcry Primetime Discord, and you too can be an autistic moron. It's alright, I'm allowed to say it.
Autism is a spectrum. It's inclusive of everybody.
Yep. I mean, we're a bunch of grown men running around in the bush playing soldier, shooting at each other.
With
Like,
toy, plastic, and metal guns.
exactly.
So some of us are playing soldier. Zach's playing officer.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. So
He's playing special policeman.
Special policeman.
Special gentleman's area policeman.
Oh, Jesus. So, as I said, this is after PB4. We're going to go over a couple of questions, let everyone speak their piece, and yeah, I guess we'll start now. So we'll start with Kermit. So, Kermit, what do you enjoy about Milsim or Milsoft over day games?
I think it's the scenario-based approach to it. As with, I think, most military exercises, there's always a training outcome that is intended for that whole event. But in this case, for Milsoft, Parabellum 4 in particular, that we're talking about here, I think it's trying to give the players an experience that they're working towards something, being part of a wider universe in saying that in 8 hours of gameplay. This can be quite challenging as well. Rather than just rocking up to a field and just shooting one another and just sticking to the same old game styles that you play nearly every other week. There are people that do that. I can't understand what kind of enjoyment they get out of it if they're doing the same thing week in and week out. That is very boring in my opinion. When you get to a field, you work as a team. Not that you don't play in teams in day games, but you play as a team, you're given a mission, and I think from the admin team in particular, we just wanted to give players full control of how they dictate how the day was going to go in terms of how they execute their missions, and admin doesn't have a hand in making it a very cutscene-ish kind of a game. So that's why I like Milsoft/Milsim.
Cool. That's a good answer. Monk?
I just like how there's sort of higher highs and lower lows. You have a greater variety of activities, and you're able to sort of take your time and conduct tactics that maybe have a slower burn with a bigger payoff. That when you're looking at a 15-minute skirmish game, you don't have the opportunity to do that because the tactic may take 35 minutes to enact. And so you need the 15, if you try and do it in a 15-minute game, it doesn't work. And your payoff might be kill 5 guys, and killing 5 guys in a 15-minute skirmish game is not a big deal, whereas killing 5 guys in a Milsim is a big deal. So it's just the difference in tempo that I enjoy.
Render?
It's a fairly similar thing. I prefer the, I guess, organization and the emphasis on tactics rather than just like who can run from spawn the fastest and kill the dudes in the maze shoot house the fastest or whatever. But yeah, I mean, it's just fun. Like, shit's all over playing day games. Generally, the fields are way bigger too, so.
Hmm.
Are we allowed to
Yeah.
swear in this? Because I'm probably going to do that.
Yeah, I mean, we've been doing it the whole time, right?
No,
Fair.
fuck you.
Fucking bunch of retards.
I can't wait to hear you
Can't.
edit.
Listen,
Oh.
I'm not monetized
So
on
this
YouTube.
doesn't get monetized.
No, I'm not monetized in the first place, so
No, that would be
it's not like I can
prostitution.
get demonetized. Okay, so now on to Zach.
So I think a lot of the same thing that the others said. I really like that in a Milsim or a Milsoft, there's time to develop complex ideas and plans that you don't really get in a day game. The average sort of scenario for a day game is some kind of, video game scenario of team deathmatch or capture the flag, etc. Whereas you have much more abstract and complex scenarios at a Milsim, such as at Parabellum 4, we sort of had the goal to establish our country of New Astana, and how we went about that. We had a lot of scope, and what a victory condition for that looked like was quite open to interpretation. So you're not limited by the setup; you're only limited by your imagination and resources.
Yeah, that's really good. I do really like all those answers. I'm personally myself, for my answer is a mix of all of those. I love the long-term strategy part of it of, instead of just, hey, let's just take the left side and just do it quick in a CQB game or something, let's all just push it once and go that, then, okay, cool, we're going to split into two sections of like 3-man teams, and then you're going to go this way, you're going to go this way, we're going to patrol this area. Once we hit this point, we come back and we circle this way, so on and so forth. And we just keep this area clear, make sure there's no enemies in it. We send out a team to do recon. We do this. Just going on patrols, even just walking around with the guys on patrol, LARPing in the bush with all our gear, like the bunch of retards we are, is...
They see us patrolling, and they be hating.
I think I'm just going to mute Zach so he can't make any more jokes like that for the rest of this. I think that's our best option. But yeah, no, same things. I prefer that larger scope, the more long term of there's, like, for example, for us, one of our objectives was to set up the Royal Palace, as Zach was talking about, and how
It was
go
our
about
El
that.
Presidente Palazzo.
Okay, Colonel Galami, sorry. But as well,
Our
another
field
one
marshal.
was Field Marshal. Another one was to retrieve the birth log. That was one of ours. And we didn't handle that. That was something that was handled by squirrels. They were out there doing that. And then we just, helped towards the end of making sure they get to where they need to be at the end of that. So yeah, we'll go on to question 2. We'll start with Kermit from the admin perspective. Because that's always a refreshing take. We always have the player perspectives, but I think having an admin perspective of being able to see everything rather than what we're just seeing is a good perspective. So Kermit, did you enjoy the event? And if not, what would you like to see changed or improved?
Well, did I enjoy the event? First of all, I was a volunteer. I was a game warden for the green team, or the standard team as we call it here. I think not seeing players going at one another for hate calling, from my perspective, I haven't really encountered any of that on Saturday. I think that's a very, very good positive. So in that way, it was enjoyable in that sense that players knew one another. They're there to get their own fun out of it. I would like to say that, and they're doing their best to make sure that everybody else had the same equal opportunity to do that. So I enjoyed that in that way. In terms of enjoying it from a game warden perspective, I think it was challenging. Green faction had the most players, had a full section. A full faction, I would say. So I had to really, on the fly, work with the squirrels at the beginning because they were after the main objective. Just to correct what you said earlier, Retro, was the retrieval of the birth lock was the primary objective written by the admin team.
Mm-hmm.
The setting up of the Grand Palazzo Palace was a live action roleplay event invented by you guys, which we were happy to go with, but unfortunately didn't really come to fruition due to the way things were being run. But anyway, so the mission was, so the squirrels actually had a pretty good time because they didn't really get engaged. They were probed by Monier, while you and Roughnecks were getting engaged, but in the valley of Shadow of Death, I will call it now.
It was a kill zone. It was definitely a valley of death.
Okay, so I'm just trying to keep to the question here. So I enjoyed it in that regard. Another thing is, I was really doing my best to make sure that all three Astana squads were in communication with one another. So when the birthmark was retrieved and it was basically delivered to its destination outside the blue territory finally, okay, so the squirrels had to sit tight, and then we had to go to the second scenario eventually. We only wrote 2 serials for the whole day for each faction. So what basically I saw was, okay, there's a bit of time lull here. We're going to give all the green team factions, they need to link up and secure the birthlock and defend it with their lives, basically. And so I abandoned the squirrels team and went across and linked up with, I think we linked up with Zach's squad, which is green 1. And then the Roughnecks were incommunicado for quite a period of time, but we managed to link up with them eventually. Okay, so am I still sticking to the question? Did I enjoy it? What could be better? Is that correct, Retro?
Yeah. So, did you enjoy the event? And if not, what would you like to see changed or improved? But I mean, the question's a bit up to interpretation. If there's other things you'd like to see improved.
Well, a lot of things can be improved, really, but I got to understand that this is a Milsoft. It's an entry-level event. And having played a couple of multi-day Milsims and having done this for real about 10 over years ago, I always feel that any lull will dampen the gameplay, will dampen the experience for the players. I think the last thing people would want to do after paying $115 to come to an 8-hour event is to be sitting on their bums not doing anything. So there was a moment where that happened. For some reason or another, players interpreted the stop to be a hard stop, where it's more of a sit on the field, have your break, pull your derag off, and then once you're ready, get moving and keep the game flowing. So there was a bit of a stand down. I didn't really enjoy that too much because I was attached with the Roughnecks then, and they were basically patrolling without any opposition. So I took it to mean that I needed to get something up for, in particular, the Roughneck squad, which eventually happened. I radioed back to admin, and I think the good thing is admin reciprocated that very quickly, trying to get the players back on the field as quickly as possible. So definitely enjoyed the event. I hope the players enjoyed the event. I was really working from an admin perspective, and it's really a very, very solid vision of what has happened in the field. So I'm trying to get perspectives. So I will definitely pass this on now.
Perfect. Monk is muted. Monk, are you able to speak?
Yes.
Okay. So, just make sure you're on the question is, did you enjoy the event? And if not, what would you like to see changed or improved? Or would you like to see anything changed or improved for future events?
Yeah, I enjoyed the event. I mean, we were speaking earlier about how I've got a different sort of measure of fun to a lot of other people, where a lot of people might, consider they killed a lot of guys to mean they had a lot of fun, or they walked a long way, I mean they had a lot of fun. I measure my way in a lot of different ways, and usually at a case-by-case scenario. So, for example, in the later part of the day, heading back out, I said to myself that if I can throw my Thunder Bee 2 more times and shoot my grenade launcher 2 more times at a hard target, then I will have considered that a fun time. So because I got to do that, in spite of maybe not having a ginormous contact, I consider that as having a lot of fun. So I like to try and think about things in a sort of a different way and think about what fun means for me and what sort of gameplay moments I want, that I find that I believe are going to be achievable, and how am I going to go about achieving them for myself. So just thinking about like simple things, like earlier in the day, another one of my measures of something that I wanted to do was I wanted to successfully patrol from one area to another, maintaining a low profile and going undetected. And we were able to do that. So even though we didn't shoot anyone, I considered that a success, and thus me having fun because we were able to do the thing that I set out to do. So that's one of the reasons as well, which links back into our first question about, what do we like about Milsoft/Milsim? You don't really get to do that sort of stuff in normal games. So it was really fun to be able to get out there and do it in a game that actually offers scenarios for that to occur. In terms of things that I'd like to see changed, I mean, we've been talking for ages about how we can run the medical differently, and I still think that a really interesting way to run the medical is a similar way to how they run it in United States with their Milsim West, their American Milsoft, and all that sort of stuff. We've spoken before about how my interpretation of Milsoft and perhaps what other people interpret Milsoft as can vary, but that I did still have some issues with the way that the respawn system worked in this iteration of the game. It led to some, as Kermit was saying, downtime equals not so great amounts of fun. And there were some times where I did come across a blue player who said he'd been sitting around at the respawn point waiting to respawn for 10 or 15 minutes. And that system did happen to result in moments like that where you may, be sitting around at the respawn waiting to be revived, and it's just not happening. So I do think there is some space for the medical system to be explored a little more whilst keeping it as simple as possible.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Yeah, I know that we've discussed it, and there's definitely a few ideas that we've had. I've got a few more ideas rattling around inside my empty head. So we'll definitely be chatting about those and going over a few things in the near future. Render, your turn.
What was the question again? Did I enjoy the event and
Did you
things
enjoy
I'd
the
change
event?
or something?
And yeah,
I
what
did.
Would you like to see changed or improved?
I did enjoy the event. Personally, I think one thing that was a big tick compared to, I guess, the previous Parabellum in terms of gameplay and stuff. A couple of things. One, the pre-organized platoon comms was a huge tick in my opinion. It actually felt like the factions were coordinated factions rather than just hey, you guys are on blue team, but there's 4 different teams doing completely separate things, doing whatever they want, and there's zero. You may have 30 people on blue team, but only 6 of you are playing together. The other dudes are doing whatever they want to do. So that was a big thing, and the open-ended and vaguely direct mission that we were given. To begin with, when we stepped off, we were told this is our area of control or interest or whatever you want to call it, and we basically need to patrol at this area and keep it secure. Outside of that, we were giving a rough ROE. Green team, we were to challenge before engaging, and red team was essentially shoot on sight. And that was that. There was not a huge, at least from where we saw on Blue Team. There wasn't a huge emphasis on like, go here, talk to this guy, you know, big convoluted sort of storyline or anything that we were being told to do. It was more just, here's a rough idea, here's the goal for the faction, go out and make it work. And sort of left it up to our teams within Blue faction to sort of organize ourselves and make it work, which I thought was really good. The teamwork definitely was much improved in this one compared to previous like Parabellums. Same as Monk, I do think there's room for the medic system to be improved. Everyone has different opinions on what works and what doesn't work, or you know what our measures of success are and stuff like that, and the definitions of Milsim to Milsoft and all that sort of thing. Like we could spend an hour talking about that sort of stuff, but I think for the most part, I did enjoy this event more than I have enjoyed the previous events. Not to say that the previous ones were worse or anything like that, but I just definitely enjoyed the way this one was run a lot better. In saying that, personally, I kind of had a shitty time for some of it because my blaster kind of stopped working halfway through it, so I resorted to less tactical solutions involving running through the bush with thunder bees and hurling them at people. So it was fun, but it's not what I was hoping to be doing. But that's no measure on the event. That's just my own personal situations.
Yeah, your blaster failed, and that's just you had to adapt to that, and that's one thing I really liked about that is that you could just adapt to it.
Yeah. Well, I managed to get a couple of really cool moments with the thunder bees rolling up on people real close in the bush while they didn't see me and dropping them at their feet and whatnot. So that was definitely entertaining.
Yeah. Zach, your turn.
So I guess to answer the question of did I have a fun time at the event, ultimately I did have a fun time, and this event has probably been the most well organized from the logistics perspective of any of the events we've been to, and in terms of communicating rule sets and messages, that's been handled really well. I have a slightly different take as to what I'd like to see to have a more fun event, though, in that our team, so I've historically run with Donbass, we a lot of our enjoyment comes from the LARP side of things, and I'm going to quote from Tractor, who always says, "You can have the most immersive experience in the world, but all that immersion ends the second you pull the trigger and hear zip, zip, zip from your gel blaster shooting 5-meter range." And so we get a real big kick out of the LARP side of things and out of the talking on radios and maneuvering and hiding, probably more so than we do out of the combat. And this was a more combat focused event simply because the limitations of the terrain meant it had to be. You weren't going to go walk over and have a chat to someone because walking over to them would take 15 minutes to climb down a cliff and then up the cliff on the other side and also through a lantana bush. And so it's not in any way that the event was unfun. It just wasn't necessarily what we were expecting to attend. Golami.
Thank you. Well, that's the first Golami we've gotten, right?
It is, aside from Colonel, Field Marshal.
Yeah, except
Colonel.
for your name. Yeah. Yeah, no.
First name Colonel.
Yeah, I'm definitely. So I actually dropped out halfway through the day. I'm coming off the.
Okay.
There it is. The tail end of COVID. I thought energy-wise I'd be a lot better. I only had like an hour or two sleep, and I don't function with very little sleep. I also had prepped my gear for the fact of our plan of I'm going to drop it at a harbor point and go from there.
Excuses.
It didn't really come to fruition as we had planned. So that was one thing. But I did... Oh, excuse me. I really enjoyed the event. I think that it was a lot better run, as Zach said, logistically wise, admin wise, it was a lot better. For us at least, obviously each team has different game wardens with them, so it can be a varying experience. I think overall, I'm a bit sad that we didn't get to do a full plan and set up where we wanted to set up and everything like that, because I was really looking forward to getting into more of the LARP side of it, of, interacting with players, and so on and so forth. I think either way though, great event. But personally, I know a lot of us are kind of on the same page of hopefully we don't get terrain that rough again. There will be footage coming out of that. I don't think it's going to do it justice. To move 75 meters forward, it took us 15 or so minutes, right, Zach?
I think a solid half hour it took to climb down that cliff.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it took us ages. It was pretty rough for us personally. We're not
once we repositioned to other parts of the map, it was a lot easier going. But
yeah,
as everyone that was there knows, the field was quite rough, and there were some parts that were too dangerous to realistically move through, particularly if you were trying to also fight in those areas. So our squad, for instance, Green 1, we got into a contact in a rocky creek at one stage, and in the space of 1 minute, I saw 3 people go down. One of them I saw cartwheel head first into this rocky creek and was certain that he was dead, and miraculously he had survived. But after seeing
completely
3 people go down,
unharmed as well, by the way.
Completely unharmed.
I don't know how that happened.
The biggest stack I've ever seen. But we just made the decision to pop our dead rags because it was too dangerous to even move through there.
Yeah, like the terrain's obviously. Oh god, I'm yawning again. Oh.
For those who have been to Toowoomba, imagine Toowoomba but with Lantana. And wet.
And wet and 0 paths. Oh well, there was 2 paths for cars, but that's one thing that we've discussed is with Toowoomba, there's actual paths there. There's goat tracks, there's animal tracks, there is cleared paths. This does not have any of that. This is pure bush, which is one thing that we...
And I would say it was a really good experience to fight in that kind of bush, but I wouldn't necessarily say that it leads to the most fun gameplay.
Yes, they do say Retro is quite experienced with bush.
Bushy.
There it is. I knew that was coming. Kermit, are you still with us?
Yes, I am.
Perfect. Okay, so we're moving on to the second last question, which is always going to be the controversial topic. Everyone's got their own views, and I think it's an excellent question to ask. If I would yawn. Oh, fuck. So, Kermit.
Are we boring you, Retro?
You guys are always boring me. You're always draining my brain cells.
Because we're autistic.
Jesus fucking Christ. Anyway, Kermit, what are your thoughts on the state of Milsim, Milsoft, and the Milsim community, the LARPerators as a whole?
I think this is my first Milsoft event, or to say Milsim event, really. I don't know when's the last time I actually played the Milsim. So that that's saying in itself, yeah, Toowoomba, which is Juliet 1.5, I believe. Okay. Anyway, that being said, yeah, there's not enough events happening out there. But that being said, there's not enough organizers, or not enough, landowners getting in contact with organizers like Tidy Toys to organize events, or even in the other event as well. So even Toowoomba is having a June game, so that's something good that we can plan towards too. Okay, so in terms of Milsim, it's definitely been quiet since last year. Actually, correction, the last Milsim I played was an invite-only game, which was up at Gympie. Well, that place is an awesome place to play in, but not sure after the floods whether it's actually going to be playable for a while, unfortunately. So that's something I actually look forward to. There has been talk of, I think there's this Predator event happening up in what, Bundaberg or something. Not sure whether that's actually Milsim-esque. More something that's probably not my cup of tea because it looks like a sci-fi kind of a drive. So the Milsim community is dangerously not moving forward at the rate that I would like to see it. It is stagnated quite a bit. I think PB4 definitely has kicked it off again. People have all of a sudden figured out that, oh god, I'm coming to this event so tired, so unprepared, so rushed, and you get on the field and all the shenanigans happen, which basically tells me that we're not doing this enough, that players are getting what we call a consistent experience that will actually level them up in terms of, bringing the game up to a level where we can run multi-dayers. However, Tractor is planning a multi-day event at an undisclosed location. Hopefully that goes ahead after the Toowoomba Milsim. So I think if more events can be run, the community will stay alive, and the community needs to continue to ask questions as required and participate as much as possible. But I suppose not having the regular Milsim Sundays due to a loss of the field has made that void even bigger. All right, that's the end of my transmission on the status of the Milsim community. Stagnating, to summarize.
Yeah. That's fair. Monk?
Well, I think that this game had the most amount of, for lack of a better word, pyro thrown. It's not necessarily true pyrotechnics because there's no fire involved, but we had the most number of thunder bees going off, the highest profusion of grenade launchers that I'd ever seen. And whilst there was maybe fewer shots shot with the grenade launchers as a result of there being fewer tag-in rounds in the country at the moment, seeing the sheer number of them around definitely showed me that there has been a jump in the level of technology that's available and that's being utilised, because a lot of the stuff's been around but just hasn't really been known about. So it's been really interesting to see that change, because something as simple as the grenades and grenade launchers, it allows the effective range of a infantry section to be much, much further. You're effectively lethal out to nearly 100 meters, so 300 feet. So where Zach was saying previously that you can have all the immersion in the world, but it's ruined when you pull the trigger, you're able to counteract that a little bit by actually being lethal out to not the expected 500 to 600 meter range of a normal infantry section, but almost line of sight range for the fields that we're on. So that definitely is something which I think is improving the community and the overall experience. I do agree with what Kermit was saying about players need to keep getting out there and events need to keep getting run. But I do definitely agree that Gelball on a whole is in a dangerous place because of basically Queensland and a crippled South Australia being the only ones left. So I would like to see, it's probably not going to happen, but further legislation being put forward in other states that might allow the national community to grow, because until the national community grows, I don't think we're going to see a lot more growth anywhere else. And I also don't think that's going to happen for a little while. So people need to keep attending what we've got, because if people don't attend that, then it'll go away. So we need to make sure that we keep using what we have before we lose it.
Yeah, fair points. Render.
I think I'm in the same boat as Kermit in his opinion, not in his ability. I do think the community itself is stagnating, but I guess COVID, like with everything else, has kind of just shot everyone in the foot. We had a couple of events sort of like last minute sort of scattered in, hoping we could get people in due to borders and all that sort of stuff. And for the most part, they were relatively successful. But it made it really difficult for a lot of people to organize and get around all that sort of stuff. And I feel like that, pulled a lot of people out of possibly, getting into more of it. I really would like to see the community grow more. I think there's plenty of opportunity for it. In the last 6-8 months alone, as Monk said, the capabilities that we have access to are dramatically increasing. The quality of blasters and the gels themselves is giving people the ability to engage, upwards of 30 or 40 meters with pretty good accuracy, which is pretty good considering the terrain we're fighting in. Generally, if you're seeing people any further than that, like, you've done well because of how thick the bush can be. Big one for me that I need to get on top of, and I'd like to see more people getting on top of, is just personal fitness. Not just, everyone has to be a super soldier, but the Parabellum 3, I believe, like, it was really hot. And there was obviously a lot of factors in this, but there was a lot of people that got hurt or went down with, like, heat cas, and just simple things that could have been mitigated by, a little bit smarter choices in their kit, being just a little bit more physically fit, simple things like that, being used to drinking more than like a liter of water in an entire day. Like, that's something that a lot of people seem to struggle with too. So I feel like the personal development of people outside of just going and like shooting somebody at an indoor field or like a day game is massively overlooked by a lot of people. Some people focus too much on, like, I have all of the kit, but I can't run 100 meters with it. So, like, there's no point in having all the kit. I don't know. I feel like people need to learn more about how they use their shit, how they can manage themselves in a day game. Like, you go and play a day game at Donnybrook or at Toowoomba for just, like, not the Milsim or Milsofts type of things, and you're essentially there for a similar amount of time as you would be for, like, the Parabellum. We're there for 8 hours or something playing. Yes, there's not as many breaks and stuff like that, but the general time frame is about the same. But people can't, myself included, can't always make it to the end of that. So wanting to go more days, I feel like the community is just going to struggle because I don't think they can keep up, especially having to camp in field or anything like that. I think if we were going to start moving in that direction, it might be a better idea to maybe do like multi-day Milsim type deal, but there's like, you don't have to camp in the field. You go out for the day, you come back, recoup overnight, go back out in the morning. That way people get that, couple of days of doing stuff, but they don't have to lug all their kit into the bush and, like, possibly hurt themselves, like cartwheeling down ravines like the boys in green team did. I don't know. I feel like I've gone off on a tangent here, but I'd really like to see the community improve, and the players themselves, take more of a look at self-improvement. Like, I really need to do it. I know I sort of pushed to a few of the boys because we had a couple of us that were pretty rough at the end of Parabellum 4, just with the terrain and how, like, unfit we sort of were. So I feel like that would be a common theme across most of the community, and something that is very easy. Well, I wouldn't say easy, but it's a very simple thing to work on. You don't have to spend money and, buy expensive kit and all that to be fit. You just have to, I don't know, work towards it. And it's just a healthy outlet, because running around in the bush all day, like we would have burnt so many calories. You do that semi-regularly, it's massive. And I
Hey,
noticed
Ren, can I add there? I just want to back you up on that. We worked out from Lockie's watch. We climbed 94 stories over the course of the day.
shit. So yeah, and that's exactly the point. Like I know from my own experience, like at Parabellum 3, I was much fitter going into Parabellum 3 because it was last year. I was like, I wanna be, capable. I wanted to be fast on the feet and be able to maneuver without slowing the section down or anything. So I was climbing a mountain, nothing crazy. I was just going like a bushwalk basically up this mountain close to my place with 10 kilos in the bag. I'd do that 3 times a week. I think from the time I started doing that to when Parabellum rolled around, I'd dropped about 15 kilos, and my performance on field was tenfold of what it was for Parabellum 4 because I'd just had a rough start to the year and let myself go a bit over Christmas, a couple of too many beers and stuff. But, just things like that, I think would be a massive improvement to the community without even changing much. And people themselves would then just notice much more positive outcome. Because if you get to the end of the day and you don't hate yourself because you're just a train wreck, you have more fun, I don't know. Does that answer the question?
Yeah,
I guess.
That's the question. Yeah, Zach?
So I think compared to some of the other gel sports, so day games and Speedsoft, and even day games in the bush, Milsim and Milsoft has a much stronger social element because you spend a lot more time in close proximity to people or talking about getting gear ready and planning and organizing, and you have to coordinate bigger teams, and you have to have a better understanding of what's going on across a variety of spaces. And unfortunately, I think this, it's going to sound wanky, but the spiritual home of that in Queensland was Milsim East in the village at Waco. And unfortunately, the death of that location due to let's say poor actions by the location owner has really put a damper on the ability of the community to mobilize, coordinate, and upskill for Milsim and Milsoft, simply because there's no location except for these big irregular events to engage in Milsoft aligned and adjacent activities. Because one of the great things about the Wakehall field is if you had a Milsoft loadout or a Milsim loadout you wanted to run, you could bring it out. You could take it to a day game. You could try it out, get some good practice. People would give you open and honest advice about it. You could trial it, see how it worked. You could see if it was too heavy. You could see if it sucked for CQB. You could see if it sucked for rolling in the dirt. And you didn't have to do that you didn't have to discover it live at a big all-day Milsim like Parabellum or, God forbid, no night Milsim. And the loss of that, I'm not necessarily sure how the community can really recover from it, at least in the short term. And I guess I'll just end it on that sort of sad topic.
Yeah, I'll agree with that because, say, a new piece of kit that we'd picked up and almost immediately prior to this event, I think it arrived about a week and a half before. Is that right, Renda? We'd had it
bang on. We hadn't had it very long, and we were spending a lot of rushing around very hard and very fast to try and get ammunition and stuff for it, just so that it was even functional before even testing.
We got this brand new grenade launcher that we wanted to run for the event, but because basically there's nowhere that we can go and shoot it and find out, hey, this ammo works, this doesn't, these shells work, these don't, this is how we maintain these shells, because we found out actually on the day that the shells that we were using were leaking out gradually as they were loaded with gas. So that's something that we didn't learn until day of. And so just having something as simple as the Waco field will allow us to get out somewhere where we can legally and safely stretch the legs on our gear a little bit and just see how it goes. Because, you know, I can't take a grenade launcher out to the fucking football field and see how it goes because someone will call cert on me.
You can do it once.
I can do it once.
do it
I won't do it
once,
a second time.
It won't go well at the end of that first.
No. But thankfully, adding on to that though, Zach, where you spoke about how the wake-all events allowed you to try shit so that when you're doing it live, it works. Building off of that, there is great value in these Milsim events, both for military and law enforcement personnel to try shit in a safe environment before actually doing it live. We've got some guys who we're linked up with who are current serving Defence Force personnel who will use these events in order to try new wacky gear setups. They just want to see if it works in a 12-hour period before they commit to it for a potentially 3 or 4 week long exercise or a 3 or 6 month long deployment, and allows them to sort of test gear in a interesting and spicy environment that if it doesn't work, they've only had to use it for 8 to 12 hours instead of days or weeks or months. So that's where I think
that's really interesting, Monk, because it's definitely the same principles and just a different
scaled up again. Yeah. Yeah, so that's one point of value which has been brought up to me from these guys a couple times, which I think needs to be built upon in order to expand the community. We can expand into further defence personnel being interested in this sport as a tool to help them in their job and also have fun.
Yeah, no, I think those are some really valid topics. One thing I do have to mention is do not take your blasters into public, for the love of God.
Like we said, you can do it once.
You can do it once, but you're either going to get shot or tased, and you're probably going to end up in jail. So
I mean,
Kermit?
to chime in there. So, yeah, with the stagnation in the community that's happening now, I've been looking beyond our shores, and I mean, just a full disclosure, I'm a member of the Secret Squirrels team, and definitely been talking to some of the members in there about, flying across the ditch to New Zealand and trying Airsoft. So that's something that's definitely on my radar for 2023. I want to get some long service leave going. Something I will definitely want to do.
Yeah, it's definitely, I have actually been invited along with you guys to do that at a few points. No idea when I'm going to be able to, but it's definitely something that I know a few of us have spoken about, as you said. But yeah, continue.
We'll also like to go try South Australia. I think it's Operation Black Sheep, if I can recall, that's the name of it. But it's trying to work around the rules of blasters there, which is doing my head in, to be quite honest with you.
Really have to borrow a gun from down there rather than take your own.
It does. I will say that it does look like they run a really good ship down there at Operation Black Sheep and the other SA Milsims. They seem to have a really good handle of the logistics and a really good location, and they have a solid idea about how to build an event, set of rules and scenarios that engages a lot of people, which is really good to see.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a couple of things as well, just to chime on what Monk is saying. People are want to come to Milsim, try it for a day, like 8 to 12 hour period, see whether the kit works and everything. I have decided to actually attend an event in the United States. That's in September. So every single thing that we're doing in Milsim, Milsoft here in Australia, I want to take it to a whole week event, like a training school there, and see whether. Well, I'm going there to learn, so that's my main reason for it. And it's not Airsoft, it's not Gelball, it's not even paintball. It's running the Miles laser system, so with blank fire. So it's actual real steel stuff. And yes, I do shoot real guns as well. And so the reason why I like Milsoft, why I like Milsim is the fire maneuver gameplay. Not only
Yes.
just the gameplay, but from a strategic point of view, logistical, tactical level as well. Like running a whole platoon on a tactical sense. So for me, I feel I need to upskill before I can even say that I'm fit enough to lead a platoon level size plan, attack, or defensive operation, or even be half experienced to run events. Not run it by myself, but be able to contribute back to the community. So I'm putting my own money where my mouth is and paying for my own training per se. So if people want to, I wouldn't say get better. I mean, you get better by learning. And I hate to say the T word, training. These events are a training base. The reason why we do it is for that whole purpose. And Travis will back me up on that.
Yeah, no, I think you guys have covered almost everything. There is one thing I definitely want to... actually, a couple of things I want to cover that I feel no...
I can answer for you, Retro. P is stored in the bowls.
Thank you, Monk.
Yikes. Actually, sorry, just to quickly, on the T is for training taboo word, like that everyone seems to be afraid of, just quickly going back to Wakehole, like even outside of the Sunday games that they had at Wakehole, where you could try your kit and try tactics and sort of do Milsim, Milsoft style stuff without just going to a big event. The beauty of that field, as Monk and a few of our other boys sort of know, and I'm sure there's a couple other teams or players out there that have done the same thing, taken advantage of this ability, was you could go, speaking to Tractor, and you could organise to go there on an off day in an afternoon or something and just train, run drills, practice stuff. When there's not 30 people on the field shooting back, you can sort of just try and iron things out. As a solo player, it's sort of irrelevant, but when you're rolling as a somewhat organised team, it makes a massive difference. And having a place that we could go and do that was phenomenal. And I'm really sad to see that has gone in that sense.
I was having a chat with Damo, call sign Mad Dog, the game warden for Redfall, and he also runs Milsim Supply, promotional plug there. You've got to understand, yeah, we're trying to rebuild the community in the sense. I think the community kind of died a little bit after COVID and obviously the loss of Wakehole. And there's a lot of people who are experienced out there who have done laser skirmish back in the day. They've disappeared off the face of the earth. Could be family, could be a lot of other miscellaneous reasons. But, the community wants to learn from people like that. And especially from EP1. If you can see them again, hopefully that would help grow the community rather than it just stagnating. So we're trying to build a community. We're trying to have a good vibe about it. People won't stick with something if it isn't a good vibe. So it's one of those things.
Okay, but there is one other thing that's really affected the community, and the community is definitely poorer. For me, moving away to Townsville has been really negative for the community.
Yeah, I really miss.
Honestly,
Fair enough.
I'd say it was really positive experience, to be completely honest. So I'll touch in this because I would like to wrap this up soon and not keep you guys for too much longer, having to play nice and record and not bully me on voice for once as much.
Oh, we can bully you if you want.
I'm all right.
Retro wore way too much gear, everyone. Like, he had 35 tons of mother stored in his backpack.
That's actually something I find really common. And I believe it's genuinely just a matter of not, like Kermit was saying, there's not as many events as there may need to be to improve the community and grow it more. People see a lot of photos or they see a lot of cool gear, and a lot of it, the people just throw shit onto their kit or think they need to bring, the whole house and the kitchen sink with them on the field, 3 blasters and all sorts of crazy stuff. It's not all needed. And yes, I am a part of, what some in the community would call the fucking laugh-orators or whatever. Like, I run a somewhat specific kind of kit. Yeah, but like you see the guys that run, purely Alice webbing, and they're like, you don't need anything else. Your plate carrier is a waste of space, blah, 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 blah. Like, people are so, like, against having all that stuff. Like, I run weighted plates. A bunch of our dudes run weighted plates, and that's just a personal choice of ours. But at the same time, when we come to an event, like, when we had it at Arachula or, out at Laidley, if I was to wear my plate carrier, I would have just put the foam plates in it, because I'm not conditioned and fit enough to justify running around with that extra weight that doesn't need to be there. And, if you want to do that, like, go nuts. But I see so many people, not so much with the plate thing, but just carrying so much gear or putting so much stuff in their bags. And Retro, you're fucking terrible for this. You put so much gear in bags or on your person, and 5 minutes into the day, you're wrecked because you're carrying so much stuff that you don't need.
Yes. Now, this will be going into the next question, so we'll try to hold this one.
Okay, I'll cut then.
Yeah. I'll say my piece on the state of the community.
Yep.
So one thing I want to start off with is, I think this is going to sound really harsh, but it's the truth I think the community needs to hear. I think you all need to harden the fuck up in the aspect of, I don't want to travel more than an hour from Brisbane to go to a field. Like, the reality is, Brisbane is a city. Surprisingly,
to go from one side of Brisbane to the other, it's an hour.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, the reality of it is, you're not going to find many places, like, yes, there is people with, say, 50 acres of property within an hour of Brisbane. But the reality of it is, how many of them do we know? Like, are we going to be able to ask
not even people? Just do we know. How many of them will be willing to do, like, to let, 100 random people show up in all their tactical gear and shoot the shit out of each other for a whole day. And, like, have a bunch of people camping and...
Like, people camping.
I will just say that some of us travelled 1,400 kilometers to come to.
Yeah,
exactly. Now this is
that's like you travelled from bloody Townsville. Like our team, we've got one bloke that comes from Townsville to play at Parabellum 4 itself. We had two blokes. One come from Melbourne. One come from New South Wales somewhere. I can't remember. I think it was Newcastle or something. Like. He caught the train for 14 hours to come and play. Yeah. Like, people that don't want to drive 40 minutes to go to an event, grow up.
Yeah, like, this is something that I can tell to everyone. There is multiple solutions to these issues. Now this will lead into the next question. Things I've learnt of Parabellum 1. I was invited to Parabellum 1 by Tractor. I had a free ticket. I did say that, and in my review, I said a lot of things. I loved the event. I drove, I think it was 4 hours or something, by myself. The furthest I'd ever been away from Brisbane. I had driven by myself for the longest period of time I'd ever driven, all the way up to go to an event to LARP in the bush with a bunch of random dudes. Now, I know some people are obviously going to have things that stop them from traveling, but, like, for example, Remy came up from Victoria to do the what was the multi-day, the last multi-day?
Tempest. Operation Tempest by Comsims.
Yes, and Kermit was there for that. Remy drove all that way with a bunch of mates. Now, for example, it's one of these things that the community needs to learn that within an hour of Brisbane, there is not much. I drove 2.5 hours to get to Laidley because I picked a mate up from Cleveland. I'm on the north side of Brisbane. I went all the way to the east side and then all the way west just so I could get my mate and me to the event.
The only thing I would say is that 3 hours for most people means that they can make it a weekend without having to take specific leave for it. And that's
Yep.
a really happy distance and a really happy configuration because, you know, a lot of people can clear a weekend, but they can't can't/won't take a Monday or a Friday leave. And I think that's pretty fair for most people.
Exactly.
But if it's a 3-hour drive, that's going north, that's as far as Harvey Bay. Going west, that's almost to Dalby. That's a pretty fucking big area that people should be able to suck it up and go to.
Yes. Now, that's definitely one thing. I think the community, like, let's look at Milsim West. People are flying from all over the US to go to these events, driving.
And internationally.
Traveling. Yeah, like, you can carpool. You could catch a plane, like Zach did, for example, coming from Townsville.
I've never gone to a Milsim where I've driven myself. I've always taken people with me.
Exactly.
I've never just driven myself. I've always done a carpool.
Exactly, and that's one thing that I learned. Now, for example, as I said, I only did the half day at Parabellum 4 because of a multitude of things. Yes, including the heavy gear, and just...
And the 6 mothers.
and everything. My friend that I brought with us, who is not here in this interview, there is a bunch of guys that are on this Discord that I could have interviewed, but then the balance would have been off. It ended up being perfect of having 1 admin, 2 blue, and 2 green, so I just did the interview. Angel, for example, he used to be on Sloperators. He has not played for a year and a half, 2 years. He has gotten straight back into doing Milsoft, Milsim, and he absolutely loved it, and he had a bum knee. And, you know, we didn't camp that night. You know, I picked him up so he could come. That was one method of getting him there. There's going to be times like, yes, these events are not going to be held close to Brisbane because it's better. Like, I mean, the dream event, we've all talked about these dreams events where we have like the outdoor section. Yeah. The outdoor sections and then having like indoor sections like we see at Milsim West all the time. Things like that is definitely something that we'd all love to do. But the thing is like the reality is that's not going to be close to Brisbane. You got to travel. Now, on to my next thing is there is definitely, and to be fair, in every community, there is always going to be that elitism. There's going to be those people that are set in their ways of, no, it's done this way for this reason. You have to do it this way. Or you wear this specific gear with pouches in this exact position because of this. Or some guy told me who said he served, I met at a bar, and he said they did it like this, and for whatever reason that he never touched on, and therefore I live by that rule. You know, that elitism in the community of, like, as well, the toxicity that I see. Now, I could do a whole video on this, and the reason I don't is because it's a touchy subject. I know a lot of people will get very angry at a lot of things that a lot of people have to say. The simple answer is there is toxicity in the community. There is a lot more energy that is spent being an asshole than it is being nice.
Hey, fucking man.
Exactly. So
Ditto.
yeah, it's not that hard.
No, you. Fuck you.
I think the biggest issue is that people can't admit that someone else has their own opinion and that someone else's kit is literally their own.
Exactly.
Like if I set my stuff up,
their own narrative.
yeah, like I set my stuff up in a way that suits the needs I am trying to meet and that I think looks cool. If someone comes up to me and says you shouldn't be doing that because that's not right, so I'll be like, cool, bro, then don't do it. Like, I'm doing it this way. If I, you know, and there's a big difference between like genuine, like constructive criticism, like, you know, hey, that's probably not going to work because it's going to like catch on your sling, or it's going to rub weird or something.
Yeah.
I've seen guys that I've been to games, people have their plate carriers super fucking loose, and I'm like, hey,
yeah, like
that's one
there's,
thing.
There's a lot of things that
constructive.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that I think people should learn about in terms of setting up their kit. You know, like you don't have to fill every section of Molly. You know,
Nope.
if you're running like a chest rig, a plate carrier, whatever, like adjusting the straps so that it sits correctly. And I'm not saying like, oh, it has to look a certain way. Like it sits on your. It's designed to sit on the body a certain way so that it's, you know, not invasive. It's not restrictive, but it's also not like flapping around, because there's nothing worse than running somewhere, especially through like the shit we were running through on the weekend, and just having loose bits of kit flying everywhere, getting caught on everything. You know, you got to move your blaster and you're catching on pouches and all sorts of shit. Like,
Every time when you have to run and you can just hear all your stuff bouncing up and
Yeah.
down.
Yeah.
like there's a lot of things that I think the community can learn that would improve their own experience playing, you know, and using certain kinds of kit. And everyone's body is different. Everybody's wants, needs, likes, whatever. They're all different, and everyone is entitled to set their kit up however they like.
I'm glad you actually brought that up, Redner, because that's
Yeah.
a really good point. In that, if you're looking at a reference photo that's a big, chonky, 120 kilo special forces muscle man,
Yeah,
Literally
100%.
Nothing but
and
muscle
you're
and rage.
and you're a skinny femboy,
Yeah.
it's probably not going to work on you.
100%.
Exactly.
I think the funniest one that I've noticed, and this is just within like my own team. One of our boys had a certain plate carrier. The brand is irrelevant because that's not the point here. But he had a plate carrier that he'd bought originally and set it up, and then he went and bought a different one, and was selling it. Now, the bloke that had originally bought this plate carrier he was there on the weekend, actually. He's a smaller. He's like 16. He's like a very skinny, small built, not very tall, like a little fella. And the plate carrier sat on him, and it looked quite large because obviously he was very small. He sold that plate carrier to one of our other boys, who is like 6'4", built like a brick shit house, like big shoulders, big fella. He puts it on. It's tiny on him.
Yep.
And that's the thing, like, just because you see a reference photo of this dude running it, like, doesn't mean that may specifically work for you. Like, if you want to run it because you're like, hey, that looks cool and I want to do that, go nuts, bro. Like, this isn't life or death. We all want to look good while we're doing what we're doing, regardless of what your opinion on looking good is. You know, whether you're new school, old school, I want to be a fucking speed softer, I like weed shit, you know, whatever. Like, if you like it, it's your kit, bro. Like, just wear it.
Yeah.
But just be realistic and, like, just set it up. Like, take the time to actually adjust your shit and set it up properly. You know, if you, and I see this a lot with, like, dudes with plate carriers that aren't adjusted properly. They'll throw like a big pouch on the back and stick a water bladder in it, and then because there's no like plates or anything to help adjust the weight, they've got 3 liters of water in a back panel or something and nothing on the front, and their plate carrier is like sitting up on their neck at the front and hanging down real low at the back, and it just looks uncomfortable. And it's like there's really easy ways to mitigate that by just adjusting little things and maybe figuring a different way of running something, but people just don't think about it, or they just don't know. I don't know, but like the divisiveness.
I'm sure all of us, the first time we did Molly, we probably just dropped it through all the back straps.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Like
why it was loose.
It's all trial and error. Like if you're not sure, go up to like if you see someone with some cool kit and you're like, hey, can I have a look at your kit? I like what you did there. Can I see it? I guarantee you 99% of the community at any event, you go up to someone and say, hey dude, your kit's really cool. Can I have a look at it? They'll be like, yeah, bro, here, have a look. This is how I set it up and this is why I was using it this way.
Yeah.
Or whatever. And then you can take that information and then, apply it to your kit,
Whereas if you go up to someone and say, oh, you've got that pouch in the wrong spot.
Yeah, they're just going to turn around and say, get fucked.
Exactly. And there's a few people that we won't name that we are aware of. Like, they're known in the community for doing things like that. And,
Look, I don't want to sit here and
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
have a go at people. Like I'm not interested in singling out people for any reason. Like everyone has their opinions. The point that I want people to take away from this is meant to be fun. Everyone wants to look cool. You know, there are right ways to do things, and I'm not saying like this pouch here and this pouch there or whatever. I mean,
Putting the
you
plate
know,
carrier in the right spot.
setting up your adjusting your
Chemistry
shit to
goes
suit
off
better. You know, especially bags. I see a lot of people with bags adjusted horribly, like they're hanging down over their waist, like over their butt and shit. Like that's just so uncomfortable. It's really bad for your shoulders if you've got it set up. But like, if you've got heaps of weight in there and it's hanging real weird, you're running, it's bouncing everywhere. Your shoulders by the end of the day are going to be wrecked.
Even something as critical as boots, and boots are probably
Yeah.
the most critical thing you can get right.
Yeah, they are
And
the most
people
important piece of
just
gear,
buy some shoes and put them on.
Yeah,
And
like there's
we
more
have-
to kit than just
Yeah.
I want that pouch. You know?
Like if you can change the fit of your boots completely by just changing how you lace them up.
Yeah, you know, the type of socks that you wear.
Yep.
You know, like the things like that people disregard, and a lot of this I think comes back to what Kermit was saying earlier, is and same with what you were saying, the lack of, you know, the community that we had with Wacol when Milsim East was sort of running it, that community, that ability to share knowledge with people and for people to try their stuff, you know, the not constant frequency of events, giving people the ability to try things out and go, that didn't work for me, I'm going to try something different. And, you know, oh, this doesn't work, I don't know what to do. I'll go and ask this guy because he looks like he's got it somewhat sorted out. All that sort of things. But because we don't have the constant flow of events, or, you know, the people don't want to go up and ask some random dude, hey, what boots are you running, or something like that, you know? Why did you set this up this way? Or, you know, can you give me some advice on my kit? Like, I feel like people just need to get out and ask questions. You know, you're never going to know unless you ask. You know, you can look at a million reference pictures.
Yeah, Wacol gave a very non-threatening environment to have those discussions for people.
Yeah, and I've had plenty of discussions with people, you know, that they're like, oh, you know, what, how did you do that? You know, what pouch is this or whatever? And I'm not a huge fan of being like, oh yeah, this is the, you know, 511 pouch for this or whatever. Like, that's not super important. It's more what's the function of it. You know, what do you need it for? Because if you don't need it, then don't have it. You know, because that old, I think it's an American saying, ounces equals pounds, pounds equals pain. You don't need to just pile shit onto your body just for the sake of having it.
I've carried less shit at every Milsim I've gone to.
Yeah.
The previous one, and I've been happier and more comfortable every time since.
That's the thing.
EP one, Eastern Predator one, was the first Milsim or Mill anything I'd been to, and I had fucking a chest rig loaded with stuff, pockets loaded with stuff, 55-liter pack loaded with stuff, a tent. And
yeah,
didn't need any of that.
And that's the thing. Like, you ask a lot of the guys that have been to a fair few events, they'll all tell you very similar things. You know, you don't have to bring literally everything. You know, you'll find guys that run heaps of stuff and then go to an event and don't run as much stuff generally have a better time because they're not struggling the entire time. They're not constantly just buggered from like running around with way too much shit that they're not using.
And if you go to an event and there's something that you didn't bring and you needed it,
yeah,
it doesn't matter. But, you know, I mean, quote old tractor, we're not playing for sheep stations here.
Exactly. You know, if you the biggest thing in using your kit is going, okay, I'm not a huge fan of where, you know, how this is set up, or I didn't need to bring this thing, or, you know, maybe shit, I probably needed to bring this. Next time I will do that. And then, you know, it's constantly changing. There's no set your kit up this way with these things and that's it. Like, never have to touch it. Like, some guys have got it squared away and they never have to touch it again. And if you get to that point, you've probably got a fair bit of experience in some regard using your own kit to the point where
Yeah.
you're happy with it. But even me, like I'm still changing shit all the time, adjusting things. Like I threw a bunch of stuff on my plate carrier a couple of weeks ago and went to a little indoor thing. Within 5 minutes, I'm like, nah, I don't like this. Something's like I'm catching my sling on things. I'm like, nah, I got to change it. And that's the sort of stuff that I don't see a lot of people doing. And I think it would really improve people's experience playing at these events. We've really gone just on a massive tangent, you and I, haven't we?
We tend to do this all the time. This is how voice chats
Oh
usually
yeah, what
go.
was the question again?
Well, I think that's enough of that question. Monk is muted, so we'll have to skip him. But we'll start with Kermit and go, what did you learn from this event?
Awesome. Thanks for your input, Kermit.
Thanks, Kermit. On to Render.
What did I learn? Well, personally and at a squad level, one thing I found, and this is a controversial topic with a lot of people, is radios. So our team historically has always sort of run an internal squad radio. Now we're not on it 24/7 having conversations. Like it's purely for just like important communication stuff that can be done with hand signals. Yes, there is that crowd, with flags and whistles and all that sort of shit. Like the historic guys have hard-ons for. Like, yes, it all works. But that's just what we have done because that's what we're used to. Our group has mainly come from playing armor, so that's just what we're used to doing. However, this event, we opted to not run an internal squad comm and relied basically on line of sight, in contact, we just yell at each other, hand signals, all that sort of stuff. And it was great. But I noticed that we hadn't fully squared away, what certain hand signals meant. Like we'd all had different ideas of things. And like I'd do one thing and someone would assume something different because we hadn't like come up with a generalized, a standardized thing. And I know there'll be people out there that go, oh, they all mean the same thing. Like it's not that different. And you're right. But like there was some things that I'm trying to communicate. I didn't know what the hand signal was for it. So I'm just making shit up on the spot, hoping people can like understand me. And like for the most part, we made it work. We just winged it because that's what we do. But that's one thing I noticed we definitely needed to improve on. Also, as I was sort of ranting on earlier, I was really unfit. Like I was struggling for a fair chunk of the day, just running up and down those hills. My cardio was not great. And I wasn't running a lot of kit. Like I had a chest rig, I had a bag on purely because I had to carry gas for the 40 that we were running. And I didn't have a pouch big enough on my chest rig to run it. If I didn't have that, I wouldn't have really had the bag. So like I wasn't carrying a lot of stuff. It was purely just I could have definitely been a lot fitter, and it probably would have made my day a little bit better, not constantly being buggered. But in saying that, like I still had a good time. So, but yeah, those were sort of the key things I really learned from this event, I guess.
Yeah, no, those are definitely some good points. Zach.
Yeah, so
What did you
I'm
learn?
going to talk about the fitness subject again. In the run up to Parabellum 2, I'd gotten quite fit, and we had our comms go down straight away, as they always fucking do. And it didn't matter because I ran around constantly, relaying messages, talking to people face to face, say cover this arc and point, rather than try to communicate it over the radio. This time I've lost all that fitness I'd put on. I think just like Render described for himself. And when comms went down, as they almost certainly always do, and they did this time, it was then shit. Couldn't really communicate. It was really challenging. Walking over to go and relay a message gets too hard when you're fucking wrecked because you're not very fit and you've been running around too hard. And yeah, so definitely learned the lesson that I need to get my fitness back up to where it was a year ago again. Yay. And The other lesson I learned is that I ran a plate carrier for the first time and it was really comfortable. Historically, I've run chest rigs or load carrying equipment. And I was actually really happy to run a plate carrier, and I ran really lightweight. I didn't run a backpack for most of the day for the first time, and that was really good.
Yeah, no, definitely some good things. Just touching on the radio thing, one thing I think that needs to be 100% said is, for most people to understand, radios are fucking sick and they're really fun to use, don't get us wrong, but they are a distraction 90% of the time because you have to fuck around with them to get them to work.
Yeah, in all honesty, it gets to the stage sometimes where you're just like, I need to concentrate, and you fucking turn off your radio.
Yeah.
And then forget to turn it back on, and someone's like, I've been trying to reach you for ages.
Yeah, and that happened multiple times yesterday because like we had inter-squad comms because you were Secco and all sorts of stuff. But there's a lot of things there that could definitely be said about radios. The thing is the short TLDR is a lot of time is needed to be invested. A lot of experimentation has been invested by us specifically. Time
and
money.
None of it's really yielded a good outcome.
Exactly. Like yesterday for me, the radio worked the best it's ever fucking worked. And I'm like, oh my god, this is amazing. I actually get to use the radio and I was able to communicate with people. But for people like Zach, for example, it didn't work. Zach had no idea what we were saying. He's like, 50 meters ahead of us and we're trying to communicate via simple hand signals.
In saying that, I feel like I need to, I guess, jump on the opposite side. Like, given obviously we didn't run radios for this event, it's not it's not completely true. Like, we had a signaler and our Secco and 2IC had radios to talk to each other and a few other bits and pieces, and they all worked flawlessly, mind you. And generally our internal squad comms at other events that we've run have all worked fairly well, flawlessly. There's obviously the few bugs you always end up with, Chinese kit and cheap radios and all that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But within our team, we've sort of nutted out what works and what doesn't without spending a fortune on radio kit. And within our own team, we generally have not many dramas with radios. It was purely just this event we decided to try something different and mainly went without radios for like our internal squad comms. On the point of them getting really busy, they do. It takes a lot of experience and a lot of practice to be good on a radio, especially if you're listening to more than one net or more than one radio and communicating accordingly while still, maintaining situational awareness and paying attention mid-game. So that is something that does require just a lot of practice. You just got to get used to dealing with the influx of information. At Parabellum 2, we somehow ended up joining forces with the enemy team and building one big faction.
Yeah, that's right.
And they all hopped onto our section's radio channel. I pretty much immediately turned it off because prior to that, we only used it for any kind of direct communication we needed for important stuff. Outside of that, we just spoke to each other in person. As soon as they joined, it was a totally different dynamic. They were just constantly on the radio, like chatting, and I couldn't handle the amount of like unnecessary chatter that was coming through. I ended up just turning my radio off, and the boys were like, "Oh, I can't reach you." I'm like, "I don't care. I can't fucking hear you anyway because everybody else is too busy chatting about what they had for breakfast or whatever." Like, so radios, I'm a big proponent for radios. I love them. I think they're great. I think they have a lot of ability to expand capability within a team. And then, in between teams and like at a platoon level, eventually when we get to a point of having that sort of organization. But as a lot of people, those that have experience using radios and stuff, they understand that it also requires a fair level of just discipline and experience in using the radio, how to talk on a radio, how to, You know, when to talk on a radio. You know, sometimes you don't need to use it. Just fucking walk over there and be like, hey, look this way, or hey, I need this, or whatever. Like, you're not using the radio to talk about your day, sort of thing. So I just, want to throw that in that, you know, radios aren't the devil, it's the people. People just don't know how to use them.
Ditto.
Yeah. And I wouldn't recommend, you know, I see a lot of dudes that are just getting into Milsim and they're like, what plate carrier do I buy? What blaster do I buy? Or do I need a radio? Where do I buy it from? What radio kit? And it's like, you don't need a radio. You're not in a team. You're obviously fairly inexperienced. Don't buy a radio. It's just going to overwhelm you. It's just more shit you don't need to spend money on and more shit that's going to be difficult for you to figure out. When you're starting out, you don't need one.
Yeah, I think those are all some very valid points. So I think the consensus of this is lighten your load, lighten your gear, play with your gear, train with it, learn it. Because like I mean, we're all LARPers here. We all have a look at, you know, footage like from GBRS group, or Spirit Systems, Ferro Concepts, Forward Observations group, you know, the list goes on. And the one thing that's in common with every single guy and every single gun tuber is build your gear to you and your mission is the consensus of it.
I think the
Don't just
easiest
copy
way to
people.
put it for majority of people is, rather than specifics on anything, just be smart and be realistic with your choices with gear and load carriage and all that sort of stuff. Like, just really think, do I need this? If you don't actually need it, like if you go to an event and you never use it, you didn't need it. So just think about that. It'll solve like 90% of your problems.
Yeah, I think those are definitely some valid points. I think that's about all we really have for this. We spent, excuse me, a long time talking, and with how this has gone, we'll probably have some other guests on at some points, and probably do this a few other times.
When's the retro podcast starting? It's the Bussy poster.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Pussy
Yeah,
casting.
so that's about it. You can find the Warcrime Primetime Discord down below.
You
so on and so
too can
forth.
join and get called a pussy all day, you know. Or you can join in and bully retro. We're always taking, you know, applicants to contribute to the retro bullying activities.
There's an entire channel dedicated to memes that have been made of me. And shit
Look,
posted.
if I'm completely honest, I have 99% of this Discord muted.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, me too.
Yeah, even me. It's a Discord it's a community that's built not just around Gelball, but many other things. And there's things that don't apply to you, so you just mute them and you do other stuff. So
Basically.
simple as
Standard
that.
Discord.
I'm in the voice chats. That's where I'm always hanging out. With most of us in this chat are literally just barely in the text chats and are usually just in the voice chats, playing games, talking shit, looking at gear, drooling over it, so on and so forth.
We
But
also play Arma 3.
we do play a lot of Armor.
We're rambling real hard here.
We're all rambling all the time.
I think the easiest way to tie this up is, you know, we've yarned for a fair bit. You know, we've all said a lot of stuff. Everything that's come out of, you know, everyone's mouths, I'm sure, it's literally to be taken as straight up opinion. Like, this is just our thoughts and our opinions on all of these subjects. I'm sure there's people out there that know more than us, and I'm sure there's people out there that think they know more than us, or think we're idiots or whatever, and that's honestly fine. I don't care. Just go out and play. You know, be involved in the community. Show up to events. Talk to people, meet people,
make friends. Yeah, that's how I've
Yeah,
met most
like,
of you retards. Sadly.
you'll find that the more people do that, and even to, like, you know, if for some ungodly reason someone from outside of Queensland suddenly listens to this, like, feel free, if you're interested, like, dead set. If you're in a state that doesn't allow gel blasters, buy some kit. Buy some move. Look, that's the best option. But
Yeah.
buy some kit because you
Don't
can
buy
buy kit.
blasters. You're
Don't
allowed
buy
to,
blasters, but buy some kit.
Yeah,
come
you're
up
allowed
for
to
an
have
event
plate carriers and helmets and ear pro and stuff like that. You're just
Yeah.
not allowed blasters
Just
or
just
gels.
show up to an event. You know,
Yeah.
if
You can
you
join the
get
Warcry
on,
Primetime Discord and try to organize to meet up with us. We've had a few guys that are very interested in coming up to do these events, and they are starting to collect their own kit. And like as Rendar has said, some of the 1-2 boys have also done the same thing. They collect kit and they
yeah,
don't
like
have
we've
blasters
got a
and they get
couple.
rid of
We've
them.
got a fair, like a good, like I think there's 12 of us total, but at any one time we've got at most like 8 of us at an event, and it's always interchanging because of schedules and stuff. But
Yeah.
you know, we've got dudes that come from interstate all the time, and we either have spare blasters for them, or they buy stuff and just ship it to us in Queensland, like have it shipped to us, and we look after it for them.
Exactly.
And it works, and I know that's not easy for some random person to just be like, hey, can I send you some stuff, and then like hoping they don't steal your shit or whatever. But like, you just get involved. I feel like the more people in Queensland that play, and the more people that are willing to travel from interstate to come and play, the bigger the community is going to grow, and the more that the likelihood of other states, hopefully, I don't hold high hopes for it, because people in the government seem to just be strange, but we'll not get into that. I'd like to see us grow at the community. I want to see it expand. I want to see bigger events. I want to see better events. I want to see more out of the community than what we're currently getting. And I think it's possible. People just need to get involved. People just need to come and play and try it out and have fun.
Exactly. So yeah, the TLDR is use your gear.
Wow, we've TLDR'd like 4 times now.
Yeah.
Maybe we should just can it.
Join one of the Discords. There's Gelsoft AU, there's Warcry Primetime, there's the Tidy Toys Discord. I'll leave links to those in the description. Join those, interact with people, talk to people, ask questions, learn things. But yeah, thank you guys for coming on. If they have any socials, I will link them down below. And yeah, don't forget to subscribe. I've got my Patreon. I've set it to like the minimum amount for whatever reason. It wants to set to like $3 or something, or $4. Can't remember. There's a link for that down below. It helps me to do things. Subscribe, share the videos, share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear what other people think of the state of the community. Yeah, we'll see you all around. I think that's about it, right, guys?
Yep.
Cool.
Thanks,
There's a lot more. There's a lot more to be discussed, but that's it.
Yeah,
I think
it's been
that'll
like
be
an hour
for
and a
another
half.
time.
Yeah, we'll probably do this another time. All right, guys. We'll catch you later. Have a good one. Stay safe. Go to games. We'll see you all around. Have a good one.
Cheers.
See ya.